In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, May 12th here in South Korea. Relevant officials from Seoul and Tokyo are meeting in the Korean capital city today to address details of the planned trip by a South Korean team of experts to assess Japan's upcoming release of radioactive wastewater from its damaged Fukushima nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, Seoul's finance ministry shares its latest monthly report on the local economy and says economic slowdown continues amid the sluggish performance on the export front. And the county of Hadong in Gyeongsang-Namdo province is hosting its World Tea Expo, which seeks to offer visitors a cup of tea and a peace of mind. Amid conflicting reports about the purpose of a planned trip to Japan by a team of South Korean experts to assess Tokyo's intentions to release radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean starting this summer, government authorities from the two countries are meeting on this Friday here in Seoul to better address the matter. Our Moon Hye-ryun reports.
High-level officials from South Korea and Japan are due to hold talks in Seoul on Friday on the planned release of wastewater from Japan's destroyed Fukushima nuclear power plant. The meeting aims to outline a detailed schedule of inspections to be undertaken by South Korean experts on the 23rd and 24th of May on site, as well as the scope of the assessments. Seoul's main focus will be to confirm Japan's capacity to treat contaminated water, such as its advanced liquid processing system, which removes radionuclides from polluted water. This follows the bilateral summit last Sunday between President Yoon and Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, during which they reached an agreement to allow an independent inspection of the wastewater stored at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant by Seoul. There have, however, been disagreements regarding the scope of the investigations. Japan claimed that South Korean experts will not be allowed to directly check water samples, but Seoul has pushed for the need to verify the water purification facilities. Prior to the talks, the Vice Minister of the Foreign Ministry is scheduled to publicly disclose the South Korean government's position and the preparation status of the inspection team to ensure clarity. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant disaster back in 2011 was the biggest nuclear accident since Chernobyl, and the process of decommissioning the plant has been delayed by the accumulation of water used to cool the reactor cores. As a result, more than 1 million tons of supposedly treated water is to be released into the ocean, raising concerns about the possible ramifications it could have on marine life and the seafood industry, as the International Atomic Energy Agency has already confirmed that ALPS does not filter out tritium. Today's talks are expected to convey the level of inspections that South Korea deems appropriate, with the presidential office saying that inspections should be different from the IAEA's process, as Korean experts are already part of that task force. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, back on Thursday, President Yoon invited former Japanese Prime Minister Taro Aso for dinner at his residence and called for the latter's support in further advancing bilateral ties. Mr. Aso, for his part, made note of President Yoon's efforts thus far, adding that there have been significant steps forward since the launch of the Yoon administration. The former Japanese leader serves as vice head of the country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party and is currently here in South Korea for a forum on this Friday. He also chairs a civilian committee on South Korea-Japan collaboration and was in Seoul last November when he also met with President Yoon. In other news, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Chinese Foreign Policy Advisor Wang Yi in Vienna for talks this past Wednesday and Thursday. Now, this was the first director-level diplomatic interaction between the two countries following tensions triggered by the emergence of a Chinese spy balloon in American territory, which was shot down by the U.S. earlier this February. The incident also prompted U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to postpone his trip to Beijing. According to the White House, the recent meeting in Vienna was, quote, candid and constructive and covered bilateral as well as global concerns, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Similarly, China's state-run Xinhua news agency reported that the two sides held, quote, substantive talks on various matters. A U.S. default will have grave national as well as international implications. Now, this is according to the International Monetary Fund, and the severity of the situation has made uncertain President Joe Biden's participation in the upcoming G7 summit over in Hiroshima starting next Friday. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
According to the International Monetary Fund on Thursday, a potential U.S. default caused by the failure to raise its debt ceiling would have very serious repercussions for the country's economy as well as the global economy. Speaking at a news briefing, IMF spokesperson Julie Kozak warned that authorities need to stay vigilant on new vulnerabilities in the U.S. banking sector due to likely higher borrowing costs. She added that higher interest would also bring about broader instability in the global economy. A similar warning was issued by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who said a default on U.S. payments could come as early as June 1st if Congress fails to raise the borrowing cap. And a U.S. default would mean much more than just further instability in the global economy.
A default would threaten the gains that we've worked so hard to make over the past few years in our pandemic recovery, and it would spark a global downturn that would set us back much further. It would also risk undermining U.S. global economic leadership and raise questions about our ability to defend our national security interests.
In response to a possible U.S. default, J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon said his company has convened a weekly war room. He added that war room sessions will become more frequent, potentially several times a day, as June 1st approaches. Dimon also warned that a potential default would spark panic among investors in the U.S. and will trickle into the global stock markets. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden on Wednesday hinted that he may attend the upcoming G7 summit in Hiroshima, Japan virtually or not go at all, depending on the course of his negotiations with congressional leaders on the debt ceiling. His comments came a day after talks with congressional leaders failed to produce a breakthrough. While Biden said he's still committed to attending the gathering of the 7 major economies, the debt issue remains the single most important thing on the agenda at the moment for the U.S. leader. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here in Korea, the Finance Ministry's latest monthly report shows challenges to economic growth persist as exports endure their longest losing streak in some 3 years. Our Lee Soo-jin has more on the latest findings.
South Korea continues to grapple with a sluggish economy. The Finance Ministry's Economic Green Book released on Friday shows that the economy is losing steam largely due to sluggish exports. This is the 4th consecutive month that the report has said there is a slowdown in the economy. Exports in April plunged around 14% compared to the previous year to around $50 billion, declining for the 7th straight month. Out of the 15 major export items, only 3, ships, automobiles, and general machinery, showed an on-year increase. Semiconductors, the nation's key export item, plunged 41% compared to the previous year. The country has been battling a trade deficit for 14 consecutive months as exports continue their downward trend. The employment rate among those aged 15 and above stood at more than 62%, up 0.6 percentage points on year last month. This was largely driven by the rise in employment in the service industry, such as the food and accommodation sector, with the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. Employment in the manufacturing industry, however, was hit hard by the sluggish chip sector, dropping nearly 10% last month. Facility investment in March also dropped 2.2% compared to the previous month, as investment in transportation equipment fell nearly 10%. The nation's current account surplus, however, came to $270 million in March, and April's current account is also expected to show a surplus. Domestic demand is also showing signs of moderate recovery. Retail sales, an indicator of private spending, rose 0.5% on year with the increase in tourists from China. The number of Chinese tourists that visited South Korea last month soared by more than 1,000% compared to a year ago. There's also some positive news when it comes to inflation, as the nation's consumer price growth slowed to 3.7% in April, falling below 4% for the first time in 14 months. The government plans to focus on implementing economic policies that will improve exports, investment, and domestic demand. 이수진, 아리랑 뉴스.
Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, is no longer a global health emergency. Now, this is according to the World Health Organization back on Thursday and follows a similar declaration for COVID-19 last week. Our Yoon reports.
The World Health Organization declared mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, a public health emergency of international concern in July of 2022, reconfirming that status in November and again as recently as February. However, on Thursday, the WHO's Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus declared an end to the disease's 10-month-long emergency status based on recommendations from the organization's Emergency Committee. More than 87,000 mpox cases have been confirmed globally, including 140 deaths in the period between January 2022 and April 2023. And in the past 3 months, almost 90% fewer mpox cases were reported compared to the previous 90 days.
Yesterday, the Emergency Committee for Mpox met and recommended to me that the multi-country outbreak of Mpox no longer represents a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice, and I'm pleased to declare that the Mpox is no longer a global health emergency.
The recent figures suggest that mpox is under control. Nicola Lowe, vice chair of the WHO's Emergency Committee on Mpox, said that the number of cases is falling, but transmission continues to circulate. But the disease needs strategic management in the long term, rather than relying on emergency measures. The viral disease spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids and causes flu-like symptoms and pus-filled skin lesions, and cases were reported in more than 100 countries. The transition now means response and preparedness to tackle the disease will be moved to disease surveillance programs at a national level, as is the case for diseases like HIV. 이은진, Arirang News.
Over in Montenegro, former cryptocurrency entrepreneur Kwon Do-hyung, also known as Do Kwon, has pleaded not guilty to charges of forged identification papers. Kwon also faces fraud charges here in South Korea and over in the U.S. My colleague Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
Disgraced crypto firm CEO Do Kwon appeared at a district court in Montenegro's capital on Thursday. This is his first trial since being arrested in the Balkan country back in March for holding a fake passport while he was under an international arrest warrant for defrauding investors in crypto schemes. Also appearing was an aide of Kwon's who has been detained alongside him. They were allegedly holding Costa Rican and Belgian passports respectively at the time. The two pleaded not guilty, with Kwon claiming his Costa Rican passport was legitimate and that he has done nothing illegal. They also filed for bail, offering to each pay 400,000 euros or some $436,000 US. The lawyer reportedly proposed that supervision measures be imposed instead of detention. While state prosecutors objected to offering bail, the court judge still has to offer her ruling on the proposal. The judge asked Kwon about how much exactly his assets are worth, citing the need to factor this into her decision-making. Kwon refrained from answering, but he reportedly told the court that he and his wife jointly own some property in Seoul worth around $4 million US. The next hearing date is set for June 16th. This comes as both South Korea and the U.S. are seeking the extradition of Kwon in connection with a $40 billion crash of his Terraform Labs cryptocurrency that devastated retail investors around the world. But if convicted in Montenegro over forged documents, Kwon could face up to 5 years in prison before being extradited. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
On the football field, Korea's opponents in the group stage matches of the Asian Cup next year in Qatar have been revealed. The Taekwondo Warriors will face Bahrain, Jordan and Malaysia in Group E. Team Korea is the highest-ranked team in this group, standing at 27th worldwide. According to the Asian Football Confederation, the Asian Cup will be hosted by Qatar from January 12th to February 10th. China was originally scheduled to host the event this summer, but changes were made last May in light of Beijing's zero-COVID policy. Up next, those interested in the taste of tea should plan a trip to Hadong County in Gyeongsang-Namdo Province this weekend. The county is currently hosting its World Tea Expo for this year, and our Choi Soo-young had the pleasure of being there.
Hadong-gun County is Gyeongsang-Namdo Province is famous for its wild green tea. It's been the hub of Korean tea culture since the Shilla era, some 1,200 years ago. Hadong-gun County includes parts of Chirisan National Park and offers beautiful views of the mountains under the blue sky with clear air and fresh water. The air is full of the scent of tea, and within this rich tea culture, the 2023 World Tea Expo Hadong is finally happening after being delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As well as the expo, visitors can take a tour along a beautiful healing road from Cheongum Tea Farm to Sangye Temple, the first tea plantation in South Korea.
I like green tea so much, and I've wanted to come to see the guide dog, Tom. The way to a pavilion at the top may be a little boring, but climbing with Tom is an exciting experience, so that's why I've come here.
On the way, visitors can see the unique attraction of the Toshim Tea Farm, which has a 1,000-year-old tea tree. The other trees here all come from its lineage, creating a large farm that is unique to Korea.
I don't know, we've come here to see the tea fields. We're on a trip, 2-week trip around Korea. We wanted to go into the country a little bit, see something a bit different. We're staying in the mountains a bit higher, do some walks, and there's a tea expo on, so we've come to see that as well.
So this is our first time to Korea, and we've come to Hadong for the first time. Sadly, we missed the blossom, but we're very excited that we're going to get to see the tea expedition. We're amazed at how beautiful it is, and just how pristine and well kept everything is, and how friendly everyone has been, so welcoming as well.
At the end of the tour, visitors can see people who cultivate tea by hand, just like they did 1,000 years ago. They believe that this old, traditional way is the best way of protecting Korean tea culture. The expo will be held until June 3rd, and the committee said that this World Tea Expo Hadong aims to make people healthier and happier through Korean tea culture. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a collection of tombs of Korea's ancient Gaya Kingdom has been put forward for possible designation as a World Heritage Site. Our Chung Won-ju has details.
The Gaya Tumuli, 7 tomb clusters from Korea's ancient Gaya Confederacy, has been recommended for inclusion on the UNESCO World Heritage list. According to South Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration on Thursday, the Gaya Tumuli was recommended during a meeting of the International Council on Monuments and Sites, or ICOMOS, a non-governmental international organization that offers advice to UNESCO on World Heritage sites. The final decision will be made during the 45th World Heritage Committee session, which will be held in Saudi Arabia in September. Cultural Heritage Authority said the ICOMOS recognized the nominated property's outstanding universal value as important evidence of Gaya. Gaya was a loosely knit federation of 6 or 7 small kingdoms that prospered between the 1st and 6th centuries in the southern and central regions of the Korean peninsula. The tumuli consists of 7 clusters of tombs that display the architectural style graves built in the 4th and 5th centuries. Burial accessories and grave goods also show Gaya's network of trade and handcrafted manufacturing. The 7 cemeteries are located in visible hill areas in the political center of the respective polities. If the tumuli are added to the list, South Korea will have 16 sites included on the UNESCO World Heritage list. Chung Won-ju, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. South Africa has been accused of supplying Russia with arms amid its ongoing war in Ukraine.
U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigetti, during a media briefing on Thursday, alleged that South Africa covertly loaded weapons and ammunition onto a Russian freighter in early December. It was docked at a Cape Town naval base at the time. Brigetti called on South Africa to adhere to its non-alignment policy. Pretoria hit back, saying that the allegations were disappointing and without evidence. It did, however, announce an inquiry into the matter. Meanwhile, the UK confirmed on the same day that it's supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles. The missiles are fired from aircraft and have a range of some 250 kilometers. Turning over to the United States-Mexico border, where tens of thousands of migrants raced to enter the U.S. ahead of the lifting of pandemic-era entry requirements. Those rules, known as Title 42, have been replaced by stricter requirements for asylum seekers as of midnight on Thursday. The COVID-19 era policy gave border officials the power to expel migrants. However, with the COVID-19 health emergency coming to an end, more stringent rules have been implemented with more funds and officials dispatched to the border. Almost all migrants who enter the U.S. illegally will be denied asylum. Those who have passed through another country without seeking refuge elsewhere or don't apply online will also be barred. Now, conflicts and natural disasters around the world in 2022 have caused an all-time high of over 71 million internally displaced people. This is according to a report on Thursday by the Norwegian Refugee Council. The new figure is up 20% from 2021. Internal displacement refers to people forced to move within their country's borders. The report did not account for those who left for other nations. The council said the war in Ukraine and major floods and droughts combined to create the perfect storm. And finally, Elon Musk has said he has found a new CEO for Twitter. The current head of the social media platform made the announcement in a tweet on Thursday. He did not reveal the new CEO's identity, saying only that she will start in the next 6 weeks. Musk previously announced last November that he would begin spending less time at Twitter and eventually find someone to take over the company's reins. Since Musk acquired Twitter through a $44 billion takeover in October, he has introduced paid verification, restored banned accounts, and reduced Twitter's workforce by 80%. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. After a confusing first week of May in terms of weather, this week has been sunnier with summer-like temperatures. We are ending the week under cloudy to sunny skies depending on where you are, but wide gaps between mornings and afternoons are the common pattern for most parts of the country again today. Now, air quality in the capital region in Chungcheong-Namdo province has improved, while the ozone level will be bad in central parts of the country with sunnier skies than in southern provinces. Top readings are 2 to 3 degrees lower this afternoon with rain in the forecast on Jeju Island from tonight. Jeju and the south coast will see 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall into tomorrow afternoon. Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-Pukdo province should also brace for some passing showers. Now, the rest of the country will also see some isolated rain on Sunday. Meanwhile, temperatures will rise further next week as we get into mid-May. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That ends our Friday afternoon newscast, but do stay with us for our panel session coming up right after this break. Thank you for now.
Korea. Some people call it the country of Taekwondo.
People are more interested in Korean culture and other aspects of it, and one of those things is Taekwondo.
Surtout, ne commencez jamais le taekwondo, parce que si jamais un jour vous commencez, vous ne pourrez jamais vous arrêter d'en faire.
정말 이렇게 제 인생을 좌우할지는 정말 몰랐어요. 왜냐하면 태권도의 나라, 한국에서 태권도를 하고 싶어서 한국에 처음 왔는데 지금은 13년째 살고 있습니다. 태권도 이런 무술입니다.
저는 사실 한 달만 하고 포기할 줄 알았어요. 근데 너무 재밌어요.
What I really like about Taekwondo is that it doesn't only give you the physical abilities, such as like flexibility or strength, it also gives you the mental abilities.
I love the spirit of Taekwondo. It's a great martial arts with a lot of respect, a lot of values. Also with the pumse, very beautiful techniques. It's a sport that you can, it's a martial art that you can practice from 7 to your old age.
I've never seen them be so committed to anything if they've played other sports, but nothing like this before.
Especially when like two very little kids are fighting, because it's really fun to watch.
So it's a great way for all of us to do this together.
I'm going to keep doing Taekwondo until this becomes a black belt.
contour the world? Simply contour. India, the United Kingdom, New Zealand. Woo!
I'm excited. You excited?
Of course.
Yeah.
Music, start.
Lotus Lantern Festival. Let the festival begin. We desire to share Korea's proud culture with the world. So that people can have a time of healing just by watching and become happy as they enjoy the festival. So that joy can stay in their hearts the moment they encounter our festival. That is the reason we want to share our culture with the world. Welcome to Lotus Lantern Festival, Seoul, Korea.
The American Chamber of Commerce in Korea marks its 70th anniversary this year, and given the recent pledge by both the Yoon and Biden administrations to broaden the security alliance to include a tangible economic partnership, we turn to the chairman of the American business entity here for his thoughts on ways to bolster bilateral economic ventures.
Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting the head of the largest foreign chamber here in Korea, the American Chamber of Commerce, James Kim. Mr. Kim, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Right, Mr. Kim, I understand you were part of the business delegation to the U.S. during President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit in late April. That being said, let's begin then with your assessment of the economic advancements, so to speak, with regard to this latest summit.
You know, for me, it was such an honor to be part of the delegation and to be in Washington, D.C., to witness the 70th anniversary between the two countries. And also, you know, luckily for us, it's AmCham's 70th years of foundation as well. So for us, just to see the 5th meeting between President Biden and President Yoon was quite special. This is also the 2nd state visit that President Biden hosted since the 2 years that he's been in office. And because of that, I think it became very, very special. But as a business person, I look at the numbers. Since 2021, Korean companies have invested over $100 billion in America. And because of this summit, I'm very happy that U.S. companies have also invested or pledged to invest around $6 billion worth of new investments in South Korea. And with 50 MOUs or so, that makes it a very powerful, I thought, a win-win partnership between the two countries and the companies that are involved.
Right. And like you mentioned, Mr. Kim, AmCham, it marks its 70th anniversary this year. Could you perhaps walk us through your entity's journey over the past 7 decades?
Well, I think we have gone through a lot of ups and downs, mainly ups. And for the past 6 years, we've been on a record performance as far as new members. And we're having a fantastic year again in 2023. But I want to focus on what we're doing today, which is to really help make Korea regional headquarters. And we have 3 missions for AmCham. One is to help American companies become successful in Korea. We want to bring a lot more SMEs into South Korea. And also, we want to help Korean companies invest in America. And obviously, because of the numbers we just talked about, it's working. So we're very happy as an AmCham, really fulfilling the mission that we have for both Korean companies and for American companies.
Right. Mr. Kim, before we proceed any further then, could you tell us a bit perhaps of the gist with regard to the Biden administration's economic policy?
You know, I would say that under President Biden, there's a lot of moving pieces. But as it relates to Korea, I want to focus on IPEF, which is the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. It's the 14 countries, and we feel that with the IPEF concept, we're able to have better trade, and more fair trade amongst the countries and also in the United States. And under the 4 pillars that we talked about, trade, supply chain, clean energy, and also tax and anti-corruption. So countries and companies who can fulfill the 4 pillars will do very, very well under the economic framework for President Biden's economic potential.
And staying with that, Mr. Kim, what can you tell us about what your entity is planning to undertake amid that framework?
Well, we have a lot. I would say in a typical year, we have around 200 events, and many of them are geared towards these kind of economic opportunities. So obviously, our member companies are constantly in dialogue with the U.S. government officials as they come in. We educate them. They also learn a lot from us as well. And for the Korean companies as well, as they want to enter America. So we always want to really coach them through IPEF. And because of that framework, we feel that everyone will be a lot stronger because of that.
Right. And what can you tell us, Mr. Kim, about the merits with regard to investing in Korea for American companies?
I would say there is really a lot. I've been in Korea now for 19 years. And I would say that if I did not have a lot of optimism about Korea, I would not be here for this long. But there are many aspects, right? Number one, it's a very resilient economy. The people are fantastic. Look at the IT infrastructure here. It's really, really world class. It's a sophisticated customer base, which means that companies can come here and use Korea as a testing bed to help them globally, not just here in Korea. And also freedom of the press is very, very powerful. I always want to cite an example from New York Times. They actually moved their headquarters from Hong Kong to South Korea. And they cite all these examples that I just talked about as the main reason for coming to South Korea. They could have gone to other countries, but they chose Korea.
Right, and staying with investment here in South Korea, President Yoon Suk-yeol called on American businesses to expand their investments in South Korea. He spoke to Elon Musk during his state visit and called on Elon Musk to perhaps think about building a Tesla Gigafactory here in the country. What are the prospects, or what would be the merits of having a Tesla Gigafactory here in South Korea, do you think?
No, as I talked about before, Korea is the 10th largest economy in the world. With all the geopolitical challenges underway, I think now is the time for the Korean government to really double down, triple down, and make Korea the best place for foreign companies to invest, including a Tesla. AmCham's #1 mission is to help make Korea a regional headquarters. And we just did a survey. This is 2 years in a row that Korea is now rated as the 2nd most desired country in Asia for foreigners to invest in, only behind Singapore. And for me, as long as we continue to make improvements, Korea can be #1. We shouldn't just be at #2.
Right, so there is room for improvement. That being said, Mr. Kim, as part of efforts to perhaps enhance the business environment here on the local front, what are some requests by American businesses?
Well, there are several. It starts with the labor policy. Korea has something called 52-hour work weeks, which President Yoon has already started refining. So again, he's making improvements to that. The tax reform, corporate tax and income tax for individuals, I'm talking foreigners, is a lot higher than in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, and other countries. So those are, again, areas where President Yoon has already helped. Just recently, President Yoon and National Assembly worked together to institute a 20-year flat tax for foreigners working in South Korea. It used to be 5 years. So things like that make it very, very competitive for foreigners to invest in Korea and for foreigners to want to work in Korea longer than the 5 years. But other arenas like CEO risk, it's a big challenge for many U.S. and foreign CEOs to want to take a job in Korea because of the CEO liability. Korea, unlike other countries, the CEO has personal risk individually and commercially. So as a result, you need to be very, very careful because anything that can happen under your watch is your responsibility. So those are some of the things that I know that President Yoon and the whole team are working on, and it's called the Serious Accident Punishment Act. And those are the things that the Korean government is trying to address and refine. I can tell you that I've had a long-standing relationship with President Yoon and his administration, and I really look at them as doing an outstanding job. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo has been in the U.S. Korea dynamics for many, many years. Foreign Minister Park Jin, I look at these people as the dream team for really enhancing the relationship between the two countries and making Korea a great destination for foreign companies to invest.
Right, and talking about investment then, what are some of the prerequisites, do you believe, for Korean businesses looking to make inroads into the American market?
I think in any country, any business, people are the most important asset. Number one, I think you need the right leader at the top who understands the complexities that a country like Korea can provide. You need a lot of knowledge, and I think you need to find the right partners to really set up the right opportunities here in Korea. And if you can do that, I think you can make Korea very, very successful. In fact, the reason why many American companies are here in Korea is because they're doing very well here. They're succeeding here. And as a result, Korea becomes a very important market for any U.S. company to operate globally. As you know, I ran 3 U.S. companies here, from Yahoo, Microsoft, and GM. They're all here because Korea is a fantastic market for them to operate in. Otherwise, they would not be here the way they have been.
Right. Mr. Kim, in recent times, the phrase friendshoring has been thrown around quite a bit in the media. Could you tell us a bit about the U.S. strategy in terms of friendshoring, and what are its broader implications for the Seoul-Washington ties on the economic front?
You know, given some of the geopolitical uncertainties today, I think having allies in strategic companies are very, very important. And I'd just like to cite a few examples. Take a look at the LG Energy Solutions and GM joint venture with Altium Cells JV. Those are good examples of friendshoring. Look at Hyundai and SK investing very large amounts of money in the United States. SK and Ford. We talked about also GE Renewable Energy and Hyundai, and Netflix and Corning. They're all very, very good examples of friendshoring and having these companies partner together so that U.S. and Korea can be allied, in a very special way. That way it provides not just short-term, but mid-term and long-term solutions, given the geopolitical, challenges underway.
Right. Mr. Kim, there are corporate concerns here on the local front with regard to the Biden administration's industrial policies that range from the Inflation Reduction Act to the CHIPS Act. That being said, what does your entity hope to do to better address these concerns?
We, again, have constant dialogues with senior officials from the U.S. government when they visit Korea. In fact, we always host the congressional delegation. We've hosted many senators, mayors as they visit South Korea. And through these type of dialogues, we're able to provide on-the-ground, accurate, unbiased information back to these important people. I recently hosted Senator John Ossoff from Georgia. And because Georgia is a very important market for Korean investments such as Hyundai and Kia, we spoke at length about what some of the concerns are about the IRA. But I also know that the U.S. and Korea enjoy a rock-solid relationship where some things may have some negative consequences short-term. Other items could be very, very positive even in the short term. But over a period of time, I think they will all even out, and Korea and the United States will enjoy a win-win partnership for many, many decades to come.
Hopefully you're right, Mr. Kim. What are your prospects regarding economic ventures by South Korean companies amid the geopolitical concerns that you mentioned earlier?
Well, we are continuing to help a lot of Korean companies do more in America. I'll give you a couple of examples. We've had a very close relationship with the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, because New York wants to get more Korean companies to use New York as its hub to invest more. So we recently had an MOU between Korean Airlines and the city of New York. And just 3 weeks ago, I was in New York for a special MOU between SPC, which is the bakery company here in South Korea that also own a lot of U.S. brands, such as a Baskin-Robbins, Dunkin' Donuts, Shake Shack. So now they're using New York as its hub to set up a lot more stores. I believe their goal is to open 2,000 stores in the United States by 2030. So again, this partnership between New York City and a company called SBC makes it very powerful in the largest city in the world called New York City. So we feel that by helping Korean companies forge special relationships with important people like the mayor of New York will give us a lot more opportunities. But also, let's not forget, we want to get more U.S. companies to invest in Korea. So it becomes a win-win relationship.
Right, of course. Mr. Kim, earlier on you spoke about intentions of your entity to create or to establish Korea as a regional hub.
Yes.
That being said, what are your prospects of Korea emerging as a business hub here in the Indo-Pacific region?
You know, I think that given the advent of all the great things that Korea has done, you know, whether it's K-pop, whether it's K-cuisine, whether it's K-movies, I think Korea's branding had become quite special. And because of that, there's no longer a need for the Korea discount. So I really am very bullish about Korea even overtaking Singapore one of these days. As long as we continue to refine the different policies for investments in South Korea, I think, look at this beautiful country we have. We have, what, 49 million people here, a lot of great resources, the best human capital, and people who want to win. So when that happens, why should Korea be number 2 to any other country here in Asia? And that's the reason why we're very bullish about the prospects to help make Korea the best place for foreign investments to come in, which is why now Korea is now number 2 for 2 years in a row. That was not like that before.
Mr. Kim, do you suppose advances in the entertainment industry with regard to Korean content, especially on the global stage, the soft power, so to speak, has it reflected favorably on business investments by foreigners here in the country, do you think?
Absolutely. You know, it's like any brand. I think now people in America associate Korea as an innovative country, innovator, with very special people from South Korea. I think a lot of people now want to look at Korea as a model. And when that happens, why not set up a shop here in South Korea as a regional headquarters? In fact, when you look at the AmCham Board of Governors, we have 8 Board of Governors who are running Asia right here from Korea. And maybe one day we'll have everyone from Korea's Board of Governors become heads of Asia right here from Korea. So those are the things that make it very special. And as long as you have these high dreams and hopes to get Korea to a certain level, I think it's a real reality here today.
Right. Mr. Kim, I understand you're entering your 7th year as head of the U.S. Business Chamber here in Korea. What are your entity's future plans?
You know, we have many plans, but we talked about AmCham really helping make Korea regional headquarters. That's something that we feel we're really on a way to succeed.
Do you have a timeline?
I would say in the next 7 to 10 years, that's a very distinct possibility. I know that the Korean government wants to go from number 10th largest economy to 9, 8, 7 shortly. So they have those aspirations, and we have the same aspirations as well. It's a forcing mechanism for us to speak with the Korean government about making some improvements that will facilitate that dream scenario to happen. Okay? The second thing is we created an entity under AmCham called the American Business Center. It's to help bring more U.S. SMEs into South Korea. Out of the 30 million SMEs in the United States, with 300,000 doing business abroad, only 20,000 are doing business in Korea today. My goal is to bring a lot of that to Korea, which means more economic opportunities for both countries, more job creation for both, and just strengthening the relationship between U.S. and Korea. So those are a couple of things we're doing. But third is we want to work very closely with President Yoon and his team and also with President Biden and his team. We have an amazing U.S. ambassador here, Ambassador Goldberg, and his team here. So we feel that by working together, we can really help even further solidify the two countries' partnership and alliance beyond the 70 years.
Right, they have talked about expanding the security alliance
Yes.
to include a greater economic partnership, and listening to you today, I understand it's going to be a very viable plan then.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Kim, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you very much.
Right, well, that ends this edition of Issues and Insiders. As always, thank you for watching.
I'm Yasmin Jalila Amriswet, the ambassador of the Republic of Rwanda to the Republic of Korea. Since I've been in Korea, I've heard and learned a lot from Arirang TV, and I'm very thankful. Arirang TV has been a very good media diplomacy partner, and I've learned a lot through the content and the programs. Korea has been shining, and I've been having this feeling and this perception thanks to the content and the work of Arirang TV. I look forward to see Arirang TV continue to take the lead in this Korean, in giving the world Korean information about the culture, the IT information, and everything surrounded it, resonating with the world. Arirang.